All right, here at Mundelein High School, we run strictly a motion offense. A couple reasons we run a motion offense are because we believe that a motion offense is nearly impossible to scout. It's going to be different, or it should look different every time down the floor. And in a motion offense, we allow our players to be basketball players and to make plays and not be robotic. There is no set structure to the system. There is no pattern to the system. It is strictly a motion offense. We talk about a few philosophies with our motion offense. First of all, we need in our offense good spacing. And by good spacing, we tell our players that we need 12 to 15 feet between each player. Now, there'll be a couple of times that I'll explain where we may break that here and there, but generally speaking, good spacing creates a good offense, and we want 12 to 15 feet between players. Secondly, we set up every cut that we do with a V-cut. After we V-cut and we meet at the screener, we go shoulder to shoulder with the screener, we talk about reading screens. And we work every day on reading screens and how to read screens. It's something that takes a long time, I think, to learn, but a skill that I think is oftentimes not taught a great deal, and something that can benefit players a great deal in order to become good basketball players. 3, communication. We need to have good communication. You have to talk on all ends of the floor in basketball. Extremely important offensively as well. We talk about communicating before you ever even make a cut anywhere. Both the screener and the cutter need to know who's screening, who's cutting before they ever make a cut. And the last thing we talk a great deal about is patience. I hear a tendency a lot of times with coaches that they start yelling, move, 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 you're standing. And a lot of times what we found is that the more we yell move, the more our guys cut through, and it ends up being guys cutting through all over the place and not a whole lot of effective screening going on. When we slow ourselves down and we're patient and we wait until we communicate before we cut and we go to screen, we find that we have a lot better screening and more effective screens in our half-court offense. In our half-court offense, we are looking for the best shot that we can find. One thing that I think is something that you need to teach your players and something that you need to keep reinforcing with them is when they set a good screen, if both players do what they're supposed to do, and both players read that screen effectively, both players meaning the screener and the cutter, about 75% of the time the screener should get open. What most coaches teach when setting a screen, we go to set our down screen and we come off with a good V-cut, most coaches teach the defender of the screener to step on the high side and help out on the cutter. In the meantime, the cutter's defender's coming through with that cutter. If this guy does his job and opens out, he should be open even more often, I think, than the cutter is. But that's something that you have to constantly reinforce with your players, because they all think a lot of times that if they're the screener, they're not going to get a shot, that it's only the cutters that get a shot. Something, again, that needs to be constantly reinforced and worked on is it is just important for the screener to read the cut as it is for that cutter to read. We are looking in our half-court offense, as I said, for the best shot that we can find. We work a great deal on getting ball reversals. We find that when the ball moves from one side to the other, that we can get the defense to shift, and in that shift is when a lot of times we'll get a player open and get a good look at the basket. You know, we constantly have to reinforce again to our players that we're not just looking for the first open shot that we get, but we're looking for the best shot that we can find. And again, in that system, we're trying to reverse the basketball, get the defense to shift, and working together as one 5-man unit to try and get the best shot that we can find, whether that be a layup, a wide open 15 to 20-foot jump shot, a 3-point shot, whatever it is that we're comfortable shooting. This is number 10, tape 1, down screen curl cut. Okay, in our half-court offense, we set both down screens and back screens. First thing I'm going to talk about is the down screen. In any sort of screening situation, there are different cuts that a player can make off the down screen and off the back screen. We talk a great deal about reading defenses. The first thing we're going to talk about again is the curl cut. In our system, in our motion offense, our down screens happen when our screener is either even or above this cutter. So even if the cutter gets down to here, we're going to set our down screen this way. It's our belief that this cut coming off of here is much easier. Your momentum's going in toward the basket. You're coming toward the ball. This down screen coming out this way here is oftentimes, you'll see every once in a while teams set down screens this way and popping out. Once again, we believe that your momentum's going away from the basket. It's really tough to catch the ball, get yourself squared up, and get a good jump shot off when all your momentum's going this way. So again, in our half-court offense, in our motion offense, our down screens are going to come when our screener is even or above our cutter. When we set our down screens, the first thing we tell our screener is before you go anywhere, you need to communicate with your cutter. We tell them to turn and look first, communicate with who you're screening for, and then you can go screen. But he has to make sure that this guy hears him. It's not communication. If this guy's staring off into space and he comes to go set a screen, this guy doesn't know it's coming, there's not going to be an effective screen set. So he communicates first, then he goes to screen. When he goes to screen, we're setting a screen on this angle here. This man is setting his defender up by taking him 3 or 4 steps down away from the screen, and now we're setting up a good V cut. Here we have a V cut. It is extremely important that that cutter makes contact with the defender. If he even comes off 6 inches away from that screener, he's leaving that defender room to squeeze through with him. He needs to make sure that he makes contact, whether it be shoulders, hips, arms. He has to make contact with that screener as he comes off there. We tell our guys that this is the point at which, when he makes contact, that he has to read that screen. By reading the screen, what we mean is this guy should know, and when they first start doing this, players need to probably look at this defender because they're not really used to reading screens. We always tell our guys, don't worry about the basketball, you know where the basketball is. Watch that defender and see where he's at. As soon as this cutter gets to this point where he's making contact with his screener, he needs to know where that defender is. So when he comes out that screen, if the defender is following behind him, we'll clean that up a little bit, he's making his V cut, the defender is following behind him, he's going to curl this. This is what we call a curl cut. That defender gets caught up in that screen. There's no way to get around it. He's going to be trailing that cutter all the way through. It's at this point where this cutter needs to decide whether he's going to pull up for a little 15 to 16 foot jump shot in this area, or he's got a wide lane here to go all the way to the basket where we can deliver the ball for a layup. The second part of this is that, and you'll see on the video, when these guys set up a good screen, we talked earlier about our motion offense that it is just as important for the screener to read the screen as it is for the cutter to read the screen. When this screener comes to set this screen and we set this up and we make a good V cut off of this, again, most coaches will teach the defender of the screener to jump out and help out on this cutter. Many coaches teach to bump that cutter. At the same time, this cutter's defender is following him through this cut right here. If this man reads the screen properly and he opens out this way and meets the ball, oftentimes he'll have a wide open jump shot in this area here. We deliver the ball. If both defenders go with that cutter, we deliver the ball there for a nice open jump shot. So this, in this next drill you're going to see, we work first 3-on-0, where we're setting a down screen and we're making a curl cut, delivering the ball either to the cutter for a jump shot or to the screener opening out for a jump shot. Explain that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
As a drill.
Yeah. Many times when we get to an advanced stage, we'll put, and for time constraint situations, we'll put two passers out here. Could be two players, two managers, a player and a manager, whatever you have available to you. We put two passers out here with basketballs, and we'll set our down screens, and we'll have one passer hit the cutter and one passer hit the screener here to get more shots up and to get through this a little bit quicker, and we just then rotate in a circle if we have four guys at a basket here.
Yeah.
Okay, the next cut that we make off of our down
Number
screen.
10.
Oh, sorry.
Number 11. I'm sorry, it's 11. Down screen
This
fade.
is number 11.
Video 1.
Down screen fade, number 11, tape 1. Okay, the next cut that we make off of, in our motion offense off of a down screen when reading screens is a fade cut. Again, we're setting the down screen here, cutter sets the screen up, comes shoulder to shoulder off of this cut. Now, instead of following that defender around the screen, or following that cutter around the screen, the defender decides this time to jump the top side of the screen. When we get shoulder to shoulder, if we see that man jump the top side of the screen, we'll fade this back toward the corner, and then we're going to rescreen that defender who's trying to recover back out to the shooter. Pass goes to the fade. We call fade when we get to this point and we see this man jump. We call fade, fade it back to the corner. This man rescreens this defender, and then we'll have him slip it to the basket. He's got this defender on his backside. We have him slip it to the basket. This guy either takes the jump shot or passes to the screener for a layup.
Right. You want to show how they can do it with two guys? Again, the two-guy pass? That's...
Okay, number 12, down screen back cut. The last cut that we make off of our down screen in our motion offense is, again, we have this scenario with the down screen and the V cut. If that defender tries to squeeze through between the cutter and the screener, and he really gets on the top side of the screen out in front of that cutter, we'll go ahead and plant right here and back cut this, leaving this guy up on the top side of the screen. Again, important for this screener, as soon as he sees the cutter go back door, he's going to open out here. This passer can either hit the cutter for a layup or the screener for a jump shot. And again, as with any of these down screen situations, you can always add another passer to have one hit the cutter, one hit the screener for the jump shot. Okay, the next screening situation that we have in our motion offense, is number 13, back screen high side. Okay, the next screening situation that we have in our motion offense, as opposed to where before we were setting the down screen when our screener was even or above the cutter, in this situation we have our screener is below our cutter. In this situation, we're going to set back screens. We believe that in any sort of motion offense, you need to set both down screens and back screens. In this situation, it is up to both the screener and the cutter to read this defender. If this defender plays on the high side right here, the cutter is going to set him up again with a V cut to the high side, and the screener is going to set the screen on the low side, and they come off on the cutter comes off on the low side of the screen. If this man is playing even or below off the passing lane, this screener or this cutter is going to set. If, however, this defender is either even or below the cutter is going to set the defender up with a V-cut low. The screener reads that, sets the screen on the high side, and the cutter comes off the high side of the screen. In this next scenario that you'll see on the video, we have a situation where we're cutting low, our V-cut's going low, the screener's setting the screen, we're coming off the high side of the screen. Again, the screener opens out. The passer can either hit the cutter or the screener. And again, you can add another passer in there to get more shots. Tape 1, number 14, backside or back screen, low side. All right, in this situation, we have our cutter is going to set the screen up on the high side with a V-cut. The screener comes and sets the screen on this angle here. We come off the low side. Again, screener opens out. Passer either hits the screener or the cutter for a jump shot or a layup. Tape 1, number 16, down screen, one defender. Okay, after explaining and getting used to the different cuts that we make, the curl cut, the fade, and the back cut off the down screen, and then the back screen and the two cuts off the back screen, what we'll start doing is adding defenders. The first defender we'll add is on the cutter. So we'll add one defender to the cutter. We'll set our down screens. At first, I would suggest you call out the cuts. Tell this defender the first time through you want him to follow that cutter around the screen, so this man gets used to what it feels like to have that defender follow him around the screen and what it feels like to read that situation. In addition to that screener knowing what it feels like to read that situation. I'll let them go through 3 or 4 cuts each, and then I'll call fade cuts. Have that defender in this scenario jump the top side of that screen, or jump the other side of the screen here, so that we need to fade it, and this man can feel again what it's like to rescreen that situation, and then obviously the last one being the back cut. What we'll then add, we'll do that for 3 or 4 days until they get used to that. What we'll then do is add a defender to the cutter and then one to the ball handler as well, to put him under some duress and get him used to handling, making the pass and delivering the pass with a defender on him. And in this situation, we're 3-on-3. I would recommend again that you still call out the cuts until they get really used to and good at reading screens. And at that point then, you can just have them set the down screen and tell that defender to play it however he wants to play it, and make that man read that screen and make the screener read the screen. It's equally as important for this ball handler to read the screen and not predetermine what cut this man's going to make, but to deliver the pass after that screen is read and that man makes his cut.